It was a huge mistake made by Flávio to, once again, try to turn these organizations into terrorist organizations. First, there is a law in the United States that allows the United States to intervene in any country in the world from the moment a terrorist organization is harming the United States. Trump can come here and do what he did, for example, in Venezuela. He didn't arrest, he kidnapped a dictator who deserved jail, in my opinion, but should have been judged in his own country according to the Constitution of Venezuela. And not Trump, under the pretext of taking the second largest oil reserve in the world, invading Venezuela, and taking the president of the republic. There's more. It harms the investigation. And you, who are one of the top investigators in Brazil today at the CGU, this was said by Gakia himself in a show that we featured in the second or third episode of this series, which was mentioned by Datena. From the moment the PCC becomes a terrorist organization, for example, all the information we gathered with the DEA, which is an American police agency, and the FBI, which is an American organization, Maripol, which few people know about, is the Interpol of South America. With Interpol, all these investigations will come under whose control? Of the CIA and the American Armed Forces. Years and years of work will be lost, work that has already been done very well by the Brazilian police, who do this with great skill, and not just the police. The public prosecutor's office, like you from the CGU, all of that will be lost over time. It's a disservice.
If I take the Banco Master case, did it just start now? No. Who authorized Banco Master to exist? Who authorized Daniel Vorcaro to acquire Banco Master and even change its name to Banco Master? When did this start? Right? That wasn't just now. It's the case of the INSS, which you mentioned just a little while ago. Yes, even the CPI itself, which was controlled by the opposition, found that the problems with the INSS have been going on since at least 2019. And that's why, even when I was at the CPI, I made a point of making this clear to the parliamentarians who questioned me. I said, well, you're questioning the one who investigated, the one who discovered it, by the way.
Then you ended up taking a leading role, not because you wanted to be the protagonist, but because you were pushed into that position. If I'm not mistaken, by ex-Judge Sergio Moro, right?
That's right. He questioned me, saying that we had taken too long to investigate, that we weren't doing our job. And I answered him. I said, well, you're questioning the one who investigated, who discovered, who is holding people accountable. You, when you were the Minister of Justice, received a report about this. It's not that you didn't see it, you received a report. You ordered an investigation. Did you hold anyone accountable? No. Did you compensate the retirees defrauded? You didn't do that either. So, what right do you have to question someone who is doing their job? Right? When addressing corruption, Datena, you have three options. The first is to pretend you didn't see it and hope no one else notices and it goes unnoticed. The second is to make some bureaucratic or procedural change to stop the bleeding. But leave the past behind. Right? And the third is for you to investigate, for you to punish, for you to hold accountable, and for you to compensate.
Are you trying to say that at the time Moro did the first two and forgot to do the last one?
He's the one who must explain why he didn't do what was needed.
In the INSS scandal, how did you manage to find out what was going on? Who exposed the INSS scandal, which involves about 100 billion, and how come nobody saw this before? Was there a lack of interest in investigating, or was it a lack of information anyway? Why did it take so long to uncover the 100 billion scandal? Is it billion?
It's actually important for us to clarify the numbers here, right? There are a lot of discussions about the INSS. There's the issue of loans repaid through deductions from retirees' benefit payments. And there was also the issue of the association fee deduction, right? From associations that would enroll retirees without their authorization and deduct 50 reais here, 50 reais there, and so on. Here we identified unauthorized deductions, which amounted to around 3 or 4 billion reais. In this specific case, how does it start, Datena? It starts with an audit by the CGU. Why? it was identified that the amount of the discount was increasing, and that starting in 2021, the number of associations that could make these types of deductions began to increase a lot, which was strange, right? Because suddenly you have 4, 5, 6 unions there that have historically made deductions. You are a journalist, you can go there and authorize the journalists union to deduct 50 Rs from your paycheck every month, which is your membership fee, and that's fine. The number began rising quickly, and this difficulty,
Where you mix the legal with the illegal?
and then things start getting mixed together. The number of associations goes way up, and so does the number of deductions. And then people start to ask, but why is there this explosion in the number of associations?
When did you notice it?
So, this was already starting back then, gaining a lot of strength from 2021 onwards, that is, during the previous government. In 2023, we arrived, identified this increase, and started an audit. Because you need to investigate whether that's actually a problem or not, right? You can't assume that's fraud. You have to investigate. And then the audits were carried out. As these audits identified a reasonable risk of fraud, what do? You call the federal police. The federal police start their own investigation. And then, in less than 6 months of a joint investigation by the federal police and the CGU, we were already requesting authorization from the judiciary to carry out operations in those entities where they were conducted, right? So, it wasn't a long investigation. Anyone familiar with criminal investigations knows those under a year are considered fast. Some investigations last 2 or 3 years.
And everything that happens too quickly favors those who are committing the crime.
Now it's true, people ask me, they say, Vinicius, but didn't the state, the government take too long? I say, the Brazilian state took too long. The Brazilian state took too long, but the government didn't. President Lula's government acted quickly.
Yeah, I'll go even further. To what extent did legitimate financial institutions, banks, and large financial institutions not notice this movement earlier? They should be the main ones interested. We talk about the state, we talk about the government, but private entities that aren't part of organized crime, to what extent could they have identified this earlier? What happened in the case of Banco Master? We'll talk about that later.
There's the case of Carbono Curto, right, Oculto, that you had, in Faria Lima, the center of a criminal organization, and we needed to improve the capacity of financial institutions. Let's separate the wheat from the chaff here so we don't generalize. Financial institutions in Brazil today play an essential role in fighting money laundering. They detect a lot of things, they flag a lot of things. Now, in any market, you have people who actually set up business models to commit fraud. They set up investment funds to commit fraud. There's no point expecting this guy to be honest since he was made not to be, right? That's what happened with some of those INSS entities. It's not that they were serious organizations that made mistakes. Some of them were. Others, the ones that caused the boom, their business model was fraudulent. There's no way around it. It needs investigation and detection. It improves detection capability. You mentioned the issue of artificial intelligence. Today it's an essential tool. We developed an artificial intelligence program called ALICE at the CGU, Bid Analysis in Contracts. Together with the CGU auditors, through the detection it performs, it has already produced savings of 5 billion reais just in President Lula's government. Here I'm talking about real savings, money that was no longer spent. Because the program goes there and identifies bidding notices that are out there. He says, this notice, the auditor looks at it and says, in fact, this notice here has a problem. He tells the manager to correct the notice. The notice is corrected and that generates the savings. Then you say again, but in President Bolsonaro's government, it generated savings of less than 2 billion reais. So in the previous president's government, did the notices have fewer problems? No. The difference is that today we use ALICE much more intensively, on a much larger scale, and we distribute this program to investigate whether something is criminal or not. We distribute this program to municipalities and states. They are doing this. So, obviously, the amount you will save and the problems you will identify are greater.
Increase in investigation, that's it.
I make an analogy. It's something like this. And then I ask people which city they would prefer to live in. You have a city where the mayor went there and said, I'm going to buy an MRI machine. magnetic to examine the population. The other city's mayor says, I'm not going to buy it. This mayor here examines the population and finds that 10% of the population has a certain type of cancer. This mayor insists he didn't buy the MRI machine, repeatedly saying, in my city, there is no one with cancer. So I ask you, would you rather live in a city where the mayor, by decree, says that people don't have cancer but doesn't allow any tests to be done, or in a city that has the MRI machine where you can get tested and find out whether you have cancer or not?
Today we are doing more tests.
Today our government has bought several MRI machines. I'm obviously speaking figuratively so that we can carry out this investigation.
Has Alice, being artificial intelligence, already developed herself when it comes to fighting crime? Did she develop herself?
Yes. As we use her more and more, she improves her ability to detect risk. And then her ability to filter, let's say, cases with higher risks increases, right? She gets better at identifying those cases. Yeah, and this also causes the increase in numbers. And many times, Datena, it's not a corruption problem. Sometimes it's a poorly written public notice. Sometimes it's a management issue and you need to guide the manager. We should also avoid stigmatizing public managers who work hard and want to do things right.
You create a state of exception.
And who sometimes makes mistakes, right? Because you're there in for example, a situation where we really helped the public manager was in the case of Rio Grande do Sul with the floods in Porto Alegre. Can you imagine the pressure on the state and city public servants to get things done quickly? It's normal that sometimes a person, even acting in good faith, makes mistakes, right? Especially because prices go up, right? They get more expensive, so you have to pay more. So you have to figure out how you're going to properly organize the processes. And then the role of the CGU is to guide, prevent, and assist. We talk a lot about fighting corruption, but we also have to keep in mind that no matter how much you fight corruption, it's not just repression that will bring results.
Because it won't put an end to it.
You have to prevent it. So these artificial intelligence mechanisms that make everyone realize that someone is watching, that someone is observing, they are very effective. Want to see another example I can give?
Some people can't sleep these days because of Licia. Alice.
Some time ago, when you were young and I was a child, you would travel on the roads of Brazil and everyone was afraid that a police officer might stop the car and ask you for something, say that your fire extinguisher is expired. And I don't know what else.
He took the ball.
Christmas box, not sure. Do you remember the story?
Of course not.
No, I remember. Nowadays in Brazil, I'm not saying it's gone, but it's rare. People don't talk or joke about it anymore like they used to. Why? Because they started arresting the police officers? No, because they installed cameras. Today, the main highways in Brazil are all filmed. They have cameras. You know what happens, right? So today you can monitor things in a much better way. And it wasn't because of a repressive measure, it was because of an improvement in surveillance capability.
But you can still corrupt the person operating the camera. And that's my question. In the case of the INSS, what was the level of involvement of state officials who participated in this corruption? And as you said, there are people who already start out with criminal intentions, right? What is the level of criminals who made it easier for organized crime members and fake unions to get involved in this scheme? How many government social agents were compromised?
Public servants. Hey, I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to prejudge anyone. But what the investigations have concluded so far is that there was indeed the involvement of public agents, right? Who probably received money from the scheme to turn a blind eye, pretend they didn't see it, to enable certain actions, yes. Cases of fraud can happen without the presence of public officials, right? Without state agents participating. Now, many times this happens and the punishment in these cases has to be exemplary. We have already opened disciplinary proceedings against these public officials. They are all suspended, right? If they are acquitted, they will return to their duties, but today they are suspended. And the proceedings, both in the criminal and administrative spheres, are ongoing in relation to them.
All in a transparent way, respecting everyone's presumption of innocence.
Of course.
What became clearest in this INSS scandal was when Lula called his son and said, look, if you have any involvement in these cases, my friend, you need to sort out your situation. Is this the autonomy the president gave you, sometimes making your own sacrifices?
No, without a doubt. Yes. Well, the President of the Republic has a very clear understanding of what his role is as president. He knows he's governing a country. He knows it's not his own house. He knows the responsibility he has before the Brazilian people who put him there. And he knows and defends this, that the law is for everyone. There he was speaking, obviously, in theory, right? If there's anything against my son or anyone else's son, it should be investigated, and it should be investigated all the way to the end, right? And everything done properly. What we can't do is risk persecuting certain people. Because it's the son of A or the son of B. That can't happen either. The Republican state can't make mistakes on either side.
Could this INSS scheme be even bigger than what we know?
No, within the scope of the...
Was it stopped, or is there still a chance it could go on?
It was completely stopped, right? Yeah, that's why we say, right? It didn't start with this government, but it ended with this government.
And right now there are a lot of people who still haven't received what they were supposed to receive. Right? Yeah, the CGU has helped so that these people can be compensated.
Yes, yes. Everyone who, the deadlines at the INSS are still open for people to receive payment. People just need to go there and say they didn't authorize it. We have already frozen 2.8 billion in assets that are blocked in courts so they can be used for compensation. But we didn't wait for that to be authorized, right? The Brazilian government decided to compensate people. And more than 3 billion reais have already been paid in compensation to the people who were harmed by this scheme.
The case at the port of Rio de Janeiro is also a scandalous case. Did the CGU take part in this, in the investigation, or not?
No, that was a federal police operation. I believe the Revenue Service was involved too. I don't think so. The Revenue Service and the federal police were involved, but if I'm not mistaken, the CGU wasn't. But in this kind of case, what happens? If you have the involvement of a public servant, which seems to be the case, we open an administrative process so that they can be expelled from service.
The same way you help the federal police in other cases, it's reciprocity. The federal police points out, look, there are agents involved in this corruption scheme. Then the CGU opens the administrative process. That's what it's responsible for. Hey, let the police do police work, let the justice system do justice work, and so on.